Hello, beautiful people. Let me know if this audio works. Let me know if this picture looks like it is supposed to. This is all about a whole new 4G setup. This is the rural country mouse setup. Okay, audio's good, video's good, excellent. Then I'm going to pour myself a drink. Ladies and gentlemen, please do follow this long dormant channel, Semiagog, as well as a safer space. You can do that on YouTube. You can do it on BitChute. You can do it on Twitter. You could do it on Telegram. Yeah, follow me in all of those places. And you can support this channel on Subscribestar as well as GoFundMe. Thank you very, very much indeed to all those who have continued to support the channel during this long hiatus. I am now sort of back. I have one more, well, maybe two more truckloads, and this primarily books. I've already got my library here, but I have two other libraries I have to get here. So that's going to fall next week at some time and make me crazy again, but I am sort of back. I'm not properly set up. I am out in the shop now. The Elf Tower, the other building, is clad in metal. The metal-clad Elf Tower! Which means that it does not receive the Wi-Fi signal very well, and I've not yet, buried an Ethernet cable going across the yard. So it is what it is. There will eventually, however, be a studio of some kind, which should be interesting indeed. So yeah, what else? Thanks to all the supporters, all of the credit and none of the blame. There are my books, a sci-fi book and a book of poetry. You can find those over on Amazon. There are links in the description box below, so feel free to check them out. And yeah, I'm happy to see that some folks actually showed up. Thank you very, very much. Here's to you all, one and all. You're like my digital kin. At the closing, in the state I am now located, the guy who was selling the house started talking to the lawyer and explaining that they'd been in this valley for a long time. And the lawyer was all like, "So are you kin to them?" And I'm like, "Kin? I'm used to kin. Whew. But kin, man, I'm out in the boonies, and I like it that way. It's excellent." But I'm supposed to be discussing Curiosities. I will run on at the mouth a bit later, and you guys can, mock me or ask questions or do what you want to do. I will cover a few different subjects, some things that I've been thinking about during this interim period, as I've been doing things like going up and down a loading ramp with a hand truck. Praise the hand truck. So hang out for the AMA if you like. We'll see how long this goes. I've got two drinks in this thing, apple juice, so it should go well. I hope, or from my perspective, it's going to go great. So we have a few different things that we can talk about. I think the sort of title track for this one is the 3 lullabies of the devouring mother, or the 3 commandments of progressivism that I hope to talk about a bit. What else is there? There is, what do I have on my list here? Oh man, basically I want to talk a little bit about ritual and the right, because I believe basically that the right's going to lose because it doesn't have parades. And I'm not talking about crowds of people in fucking khaki pants either. So that's another subject that I would like to tap this evening, maybe talk about a little bit. And another one is sort of the idea of a relationship between a cryptocratic and a narcocratic culture. It's just an idea that has begun to develop in my mind. I'll try to blather about it a little bit tonight. And I'm trying to think of someone that would be a good person to talk to about the basic ideas I have here. And I'm thinking it may well be that it is Thomas 777. but I have not yet reached out to him about it. I still need to chew through it, and you'll hear about the basic idea that I'm interested in, that I want to, scratch at a little bit. I will talk about that this evening. Anything else? Oh, yeah. Light bulbs, man. Oh, my God. Fucking light bulbs. These LED fucking light bulbs, man. Oh, my God. I've got to get the things out of my system. This is like the beginning of a stream with AA, where he just sort of talks about all kinds of different nonsense as a kind of barrier. So, those who are prepared can wait through these rants, which entertain me anyway, and we'll get to the meat of the matter. These fucking LED light bulbs, man. They've been out for a while. I despise them. I'm about to turn into a total au rebord type descent freak in terms of sensitivity to light. I know that you can't trust LED light bulbs, but I'm really fucking angry because they got me. They got me with their design of the object. They've cottoned on to the fact that everybody hates their loathsome institutional, blue-green puke haze that they produce, or anyone with taste, anyone who's not like some dull sublunary freak, takes exception to the horrific light that these things cast. And that's one of the reasons that I will always love Donald Trump, because he got on them about their fucking light bulbs. I just want the old light bulbs back. Anyway, so the point is, I knew they were bad, but they came up with these. They're like classic, vintage, classic, amber light. And they make it look like a cool old incandescent bulb. And they trick you for a minute, sort of. I look at things in this light and I'm like, wow, it's amber, but somehow it's still sickly. There's something about how it vibrates, and the fact, or its frequency, I should say. I don't understand how these work. I just know that they make me want to puke. And I'm very angry because the design of the bulb makes it seem like, oh, wow, something changed. So I went and bought some of these. Newsflash, they cost a fucking fortune relative to these other bulbs. They don't produce shit for light, and what they do produce is repugnant. So yeah, I'm really pissed off about that. One other thing I should cover that I'm pissed off about before I get to this other thing that I want to talk about that I'm pissed off about, and that is components. I brought my old stereo components over here, and they're like the ones you stack on top of each other. Back in the 70s and 80s, you'd have a glass cabinet with a little door, and there'd be the one above the other. And I just enjoyed all the different little colored lights, and the way that like you had choices in terms of what kind of aesthetic you wanted with the components of your audio system. And you no longer have that. Everything has become a fucking fingerprint smeared glass of some kind, right? It's all fingerprint smeared glass. There is no scope allowing different industrial designers and designers in general to, have their vision come to life. Everything that you interact with now is, it's just, ugh. You know what it reminds me of? These slimy, greasy, filthy, black glass things when they're not glowing. And they're just as nasty when they are glowing. It reminds me of vestigial lipstick on a fucking wine glass. There's nothing as gross as encrusted lipstick on a wine glass. I mean, there are things as gross, but it's up there. So yeah, I'm pissed off about components. Somehow I got off into discussing how I'm pissed off about lipstick on wine glasses. The point is, however, that we lost this scope for expression with the idea of these different components. I am totally going back. I am going to get a total 70s style stereo system. I want big ass tower speakers. I mean, they don't have to be big. I don't want to be cheap. I think I'm probably going to drop some money for some clips. Don't you just like to say clips? Speakers. Anyway, yes. So I'm mad about components and about how we've been done in this respect. That the triumph of pragmatism and a crass utilitarianism is disgusting. So that's another thing that I'm upset about. The bulbs, the fucking stereo components. Oh, here's one. My own fucking computer pissed me off because I wanted to talk about it a little bit more this evening and use graphics to show you the point. And I can't share elements on my desktop the way I used to be able to. It's I don't know. It made me angry. Anyway, but what I wanted to... Basically, there was a recent stream that AA did. Oh, and by the way, I'm hopefully going to be appearing with him next Wednesday for a cigar stream, I think it is, as a part of his ongoing exploration of this sort of dialectical interplay between civilization and nature. There's already been one that had Panama Hat and The Mighty Turnip. And then there was another one that just happened with Mike from Imperium Press and Ed Dutton. Dutton is a fucking trip. Anyway, there's going to be a third one, and I should be doing that with AA. So AA had a stream recently, and it had Sargon on it and some other people. And in the midst of the discussion, something came up about morph, and fucking it just. Ugh. It just to even say the fucking word. Something came up about it, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, Oliver has a big thing about morph, right?" And Sargon starts going, "Well, what's wrong with morph? What's wrong with morph?" So tonight, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with fucking morph. I just went through this with some sophomoric pissant who wanted to argue with me about hone in, and yeah, none of you care about this. That's okay. Because that is specifically why I'm going to put you through this. So I went through it with hone in, another slobbering imbecile's expression along the lines of impactful. So yeah, I wanted to show you with morph, right? I have the receipts, people. I have the receipts. Here, let me just show you this. Okay, way back around 1987, 88, the end of the 80s, you started seeing this computer called an Amiga, and the Amiga 500, I think, was the one where they really hit it big, and they had this thing called a video toaster. For a long time, it was like, if you want to do video, you get an Amiga. You don't get any of these other computers. Like Mac at the time was focused on what was called desktop publishing. The Amiga was the shit. And they had this software round about this time called Cinemorph. And Cinemorph was one of these software programs from back in the day, and it allowed you to take two flat images and identify key points on the face. In this case, it was for faces, and it would merge the one into the other quite smoothly. It's something that everybody takes for granted today, but I was around at the time, and it was very, very cool. And everyone was like, wow, Cinemorph, you morphed his face. And it specifically had to do with this graphics filter. That's what it was. And here, let me show you Cinemorph. Because I was around when morph, it used as a verb in this sense, did not fucking exist. I was there. No one's going to come and tell me. I love it when these fucking idiots show up and they're like, I found it in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And a bunch of these people are supposed to be right-wingers who are foaming at the mouth about, rightly so, about things like birthing person, right? And they're like, birthing person is in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, or woman will be modified in order to support whatever the leftist take is on things, so you can't trust it. But I'm going to tell you, who was alive at the time, who watched the imbecility fucking flower in a great fucking idiotic efflorescence, I'm going to tell you that it really was a word that was around, even though you know it wasn't, because you were there and you saw it fucking appear and start to come out of the mouths of fucking imbeciles, right? So, where was I? Look at this. Look at this. I got to share my screen with this. Okay. Can everybody see this? You fuckers. Can you see it? You who doubt me. This is a video that shows the business of Cinemorph as it works, right? Watch this, fuckers. How do I get to this? God, I hate fucking technology. Where is it now? Good Lord, oh fuck. Oh my God, I hate this. Is this it? No. Why on earth would my... Oh, is it another? Where the fuck? I can't I can't press play on it. God damn it. See, this is the thing. I couldn't share the video as I did before. And now I can't find the tab because there are too many tabs. Oh my God, I hate humanity. And right now I hate myself because trying to come down like a hammer, a just and righteous hammer on the heads of the fucking vermin while not being able to operate your computer is suboptimal. Where is this goddamn thing? I can see it here. It was a tab I just selected. It's YouTube. But it, no. Ugh. Oh my God, man, this is just so, steal my own thunder. There we go. Is this it? This is it? Yes. All right. It gave it another tab. It didn't have the normal YouTube tab because it's being shared. Motherfuckers. Look. Look. You see that? That's what morph did. That's what morph did. And all the monkeys went, ooh, ooh, it's morphing, ooh. And so they started to say morph. And the kids who were into software and all the rest would get all excited about it. You know, it worked like this. It was one of these crazy old interfaces, right? The kids got all excited about it, the young people, and they would say, oh, it morphed, it morphed. And then, you know, a few adults picked up on it, and they all decided that what they should say is morph instead. And of course, this is stupid. Let me show you the whole deal with morph and what everybody misunderstands. Like, I just had this dill rod show up and tell me hone in is an expression, because I said hone in is not an expression. It's a bunch of fools who misheard homing pigeon and homing missile and home in and decided to start saying hone in. And this guy goes to Ngram Viewer and he shows me all these examples of hone in. I'm like, dude, go look at the actual instances that are being pulled up in the corpus, and you'll see that none of them are this use that you think has a history and doesn't. Dipshit. Anyway, so let's go to oh, I have to stop that screen. There we go. Share. Do. Where's the Ngram Viewer? Is this the one? Yes. Okay. Now, look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Just walk with me. Momentarily attempt to suspend disbelief. You see what's going on here? That blue line, if you can't read it, is morph. And that's a noun, right? That's a noun. That's a noun that can mean all sorts of... Let me pull up my last little thing that I had on that. Okay, so morph. As a noun in biology, genetic variant of an animal, 1955. As a verb in cinematic special effects, around 1987, short for metamorphosis, right? Which gives us morphed and morphing and this other slobbering imbecility. It's, of course, a Greek word that has a good pedigree, like metamorphosis. Morph means structure. So... And we have metamorphosize, right? They just morph, and they just use it instead of change. Oh, it morphed into this. It morphed. No, it just fucking changed, fools. Anyway, look, you can see the rare use of this term morph as a blue line, right? That's morph. It's a noun. It's not a verb, right? It's not a fucking verb. It's a noun, the blue line. Now look at the word in green. That's amiga. That's the beginning of the appearances and instances of amiga in our speech from the period when it was discussed and it appeared in text and all these things. So it, it registers on the Ngram Viewer. You know, that's a weird thing about this long stinging weird morph that's, it's got such a long pedigree. You see how it comes right out around 1990 out of that period of the amiga use? That's the imbecility index. You see the imbecility index? That's what we're dealing with here. So I just wanted to get that out of my system. That's what's going on with morph. Everyone who uses that expression, and some people who should know better do. I shit you not, I have heard academic agent say hone in twice. And I've seen him use the expression morph. There's a little known bit from our early interactions that most people won't know about, and doubtless he will have forgotten. But we got in an argument about dictionaries. And because I told him to stop saying fucking morph. And then it went over to dictionaries, and he was like, you know, I've got an Oxford dictionary, and I'm like, I've got 3 of them, and they're unabridged, you know, and he's like, you wouldn't have them unabridged, and I'm like, because they take up so much shelf space, and I'm like, ha ha, fuck you, because I've got the ones that you read with a magnifying glass, and I've got 2 editions of them. Anyway, morph is not a fucking word, and please put the pressure on AA to stop saying things like hone in and morph. It's unbecoming. It's unseemly. All right, so now I have wasted enough time with nonsense, and I will get to our subjects. Let me just pull up my notes here, and we will talk about these things. What do you guys want to hear about first? Tell me in the chat. Do you want to hear about the 3 lullabies of the devouring mother? Do you want to hear about the right will lose because it doesn't have parades? Or would you like to hear about narcocratic and potentially cryptocratic culture? Let me know. And I will meditate upon the many varieties of bugs. The bugs. The fucking bugs everywhere. But they're better than city bugs. I will take scorpions, big-ass moths, carpenter ants, and carpenter bees anytime over fucking bed bugs and cockroaches. Anytime. I cannot tell you, ladies and gentlemen, how pleased I am to be out of the... What's that fucking line from Conan the Barbarian where Subutai and Conan come up on the city and they talk about how it stinks and they say you never see a more wretched... I got it confused with Star Wars where they talk about a hive of villainy. Yeah, anyway, it sucks. I'm very happy to be out of the city. And I really have to say it feels like it was just in time. And Nudge Unit saying fucking irregardless. You're all vermin. God, speak your fucking language, people. Have some pride. Fuck. All right, we're doing parades because Charlemagne said parades, so he gets the vote. All right, so the parade thing. Now, I will point you guys, I'm just going to talk about this briefly, but there is a much longer stream that I did with my friend Gerard on processions. And processions are something... What the fuck? Semi is what? Come here. Morph was a common term in the UK. Okay, VL now. It's been around for a while. Forgive me, but I'm going to have to make fun of you. Morph. It was around in the UK way before the Amiga. How old are you? And where did you hear it? And show me in some fashion that is attested, because you are wrong and I am right. Okay, back to what I was fucking talking about. The right, yeah, parades. So Gerard and I did a discussion about processions and the power of processions as ritual behavior, and the way in which it comes out unconsciously. You know, if there's something terrible happening, there's a normal human response, which is the idea that you must get up and march together. It's tied to what could be called, I suppose, herd instinct in some respects. Look up Morph, the Tony Hart character on YouTube. So there was a character named Morph. So what? Okay. What does that have to do with what I'm talking about? That someone came up with a guy and named him Morph? Was he known for transforming in the 70s? And was it a result of metamorphosis? You can shorten metamorphosis and still not have the verb to morph. That's all I'm going to say on that. Oh my God. Okay. So, Yes, it's still a fucking noun. Jesus, you're... All right, yes, I am going to move on now. So, the right will lose because it doesn't have parades. As I pointed out, you can find out more about this in my discussion on processions with Gerard. And in that, we go into the way in which you can see it as a stress response, right? So if one animal darts, others will want to dart because there's a predator at a distance, and some weird sense spreads throughout the herd, and they all know it's time to bolt. Likewise, if someone jumps beside you, you're very likely to jump, in fright. We take our readings from other people around us. Note, the character did not morph, it metamorphosized. Because back then, in the 1970s, in Britain, people knew how to speak English, unlike you. However, I now have to take you off of here because it's just going to make me angry to see you doubt. To see you fucking doubt. Contradict. Don't you contradict me. Anyway, the idea is that you see it as a stress response. So like in some of the historical texts that relate what happened after the Black Plague really hit Europe in the middle of the 14th century, 1340 something, right in there. They talked about rogational processions, which is where the people would get together and go on these processions, sometimes just circling the perimeter of a city, but they would beg for forgiveness. They would mortify their flesh. They would pray. And the idea was that by moving together, they could address this calamity. And you can, for example, imagine, our hominid ancestors confronted with massive flooding or the arrival of glaciers or the explosion of a volcano, and they just pick up their asses and move. I've seen it even on an individual basis with a woman who got very badly attacked and knifed, and she took up running as a stress response. So not only do you see it with the individual person, but you see it with the group, and there is a kind of isomorphism between them, doubtless because of the instinctive nature of it and the individual and collective manifestations of that drive. So I bring that up because parades are a very, very powerful thing that is very deeply rooted. They also have to do with military expansion, obviously, marching bands going back to Mehter in Turkey, Ottoman marching bands, European marching bands to Ottoman marching bands, the idea of, the drums that help people to do things together, like marching in step with a cadence or beating on a drum in a ship where they're rowing. There are many things that tend to link people in an experience, and one of them is moving together. And you will see that many of the parades that happen today, they don't exploit that aspect. So if you see a big leftist parade, you just see scattered knots of people moving here and there. And God help you if it's a leftist one, you'll have a bunch of fucking rainbow people beating on darbukas and djembes and shit, and it's going to sound like popcorn. And you're going to smell the patchouli sweat and hand-rolled drum cigarettes. So what I'm getting at is that though we do see parades or processions of a kind still used, and they talk about it, they talk about it as a march, right? You do not see the things that synchronize. Or if you do, it's a good old-fashioned, parade in Waukesha, and some youth or stranger will run over people in a car. But in the domain of politics, you do not see that kind of synchronized movement. And I think there's an enormous opportunity there for the right if they just understand how to have parades. Over the last couple of weeks, I was staying at my mother's, and man, it's crazy. I got to 50 years old without ever really having a sense of just how expensive alcohol is. And all it took was a few weeks staying with my mother, and now I've learned all about it. Bless her heart. She's wonderful for taking me in, but nevertheless caused me to want to drink. Anyway, so I decided to exercise while I was there, and my weights were in storage. So I pulled out my old bike, and I just biked daily. And so I was going through this park, and they've got, the chalk drawings on the ground about Ukraine, and they've got, rainbow shit everywhere. And on the weekends, I would pass these fat women and fat men that were practicing their little marching band group as musicians with their rainbow flags and everything. But the thing is, they were all competent musicians. They were, they made the music, they produced it, it sounded good, and you had the organization of an orchestra. The rhythm is what locks together a flamenco group. The conductor with whatever the damn stylus is that he waves around. There is a specific term for it that I cannot recall at the moment, but he waves this around and he unifies the people so that they can operate as one. And all of these globo homo types doing their thing, at least get that with the bands and the music. The right wing needs marching bands, like yesterday, like 20 years ago, that are clever and tight and energetic, but not, shouting about not being replaced and carrying tiki torches around. There are ways to handle the bringing together and the linking together of people in collective efforts that don't have to fall prey willfully and conform to the worst negative stereotypes. It doesn't have to be in black wool with like lightning bolt insignia on your arm, carrying torches and shouting about not being replaced. There are ways to express this that will be certainly at least as effective, if not far, far, far more effective, and less likely to alienate people. It's important that it be done, and it be done well. And so there's quite a bit to that. Marching bands, cadences, men moving and doing things together. It's the same kind of thing that you saw with like sea shanties as working songs. And I think there's a deeper thing that the right somehow has it doesn't know how to handle secular ritual. And there are certain questions about the applicability or the authenticity of any ritual that is really, strictly speaking, only secular. But I can leave that to the side for the moment. I just want to put a pin in that. Even the churches and things, I don't see, outside of places where the traditions are still alive, like Spain with Santa Semana, or the Rocio, you don't see churches doing much with parades. And, I suppose they still do things like, the Macy's parade and stuff for 4th of July and the rest, but not often, and it doesn't get much coverage. It's just it's an enormous opportunity, absolutely enormous opportunity, but any person setting it up would have his or her, but hopefully his, hands full with managing all the different personality types that would try to show up and shit the bed with some sort of alienating, autistic, right-wing bullshit. So I would suggest that everybody really think hard about the opportunities inherent in that and consider doing something with it. And it is in point of fact, processions are very, very closely related to calendars, and for a good reason. And so doing things together in time and in space, obviously these things mesh. And there's a friend of mine who is supposed to be doing something with a calendar. It's eventually going to happen. It got very far along. So yeah, calendars and processions, and giving quite a bit of attention to the ritual aspect. That is what is most important. But basically, in summary, we need rituals. We need festivals to fill that calendar with, not to downplay ones that are already present. With the Catholic liturgical calendar, they've got an enormous range of options if they want to turn those things on. That's part of their heritage. Those things are there, and they focus on different saints or different themes or different cycles of the the Passion, or and all the rest. but I believe that there is room for more ritual, particularly processions, and perhaps that that cast a wider net. So yeah, and if you want to take a look at that, that's or to consider this further, there is my discussion that I had with Gerard on that in the video on processions. And one of these days I'm going to talk about when I converted a city park in Istanbul to an art gallery. It's another great idea that, people could be doing things with. You take all of the outdoor advertising panels, backlit, big billboards, big vinyl printouts on the sides of building and all the rest. You take all of the commercial advertising down, and you show works of art in the spaces that otherwise would be occupied by advertisements. And I did it in the past. It was a major city park, and it was in Şişli Belediyesi. So it was a big upscale district. It wasn't a really big park, but it was a in-town city park with a good bit of space, and we had backlit panels, and we had the bus shelter displays, all of them, and big printouts that covered the whole sides of buildings, and it was exhibits of Turkish photographers. I think the right could do some things with that as well that could be very, very interesting indeed. So that covers the business of the right wing and parades. I guess I'll jump into this idea of narcocratic culture. It's just very loosely put together. I'll talk about that, and then I'll jump over to this business of the what did I call it? The three lullabies. The 3 lullabies of the devouring mother. And then we'll go over to AMA, and you guys can fuck with me or whatever, or I'll answer questions, or we can talk shit about what's been going on and the rest. So yeah, this maybe I'll try to chase down Thomas 777 to further dimensionalize this subject, because there's only so far I can take it, and for a variety of reasons, I think he would have some interesting perspectives on this. But I was driving back and forth between the city I used to live in and the place that sure as hell ain't a city where I live now. And and I was thinking to myself about drug culture, because I was listening. I didn't have time to the first time I loaded up my truck, I didn't have time to hook up an iPad, whatever or my phone. That's right. Nobody uses a fucking iPod anymore. I'm already dating myself, but what you guys would call hooking your phone up to play music off of it, or whatever the fuck you do. So I had to listen to the radio, and I heard the same tired rock and roll dickweeds doing their kind of chatter, where they kind of talk about partying, and they're all like 50 years old now, and they're talking about like Journey and Styx and shit, and I just thought about all these years of culture that idealized quote unquote partying as a verb. I see Charlemagne says he's talking about using his old iPod. I do that. I just have an iPod now, and that's all I use. I don't use my phone for anything except text messages and phone calls. And occasionally, I'll look up something on a map, but because I'm of that generation that used to have to drive places without a voice telling me where to turn, I can still do that. But yeah, it's very, very cool to break out the old iPods, especially the cool old badass heavy thick ones. I've got one of it's not the Nano, but it's the one that's a little bit smaller. Shit, where is it? I don't know where it is. So anyway, I was driving along listening to these dickweeds on the radio, and they were doing their usual thing of sort of, they make their little snide remarks that they can and not violate communications guidelines, relative to sex or drugs or, some species of rock and roll depravity. And I just was thinking to myself, man, this is generations of this shit at this point. I mean, from Amy Winehouse to Jimi Hendrix, to Janis Joplin. I mean, the whole thing with people like Kurt Cobain and heroin. I mean, the whole thing of drugs and counterculture. I was thinking about that. And I just so happened to have been rereading a book on Aleister Crowley and his role as a spy. And it's by, I want to say, Jonathan Spence. And it's called Secret Agent 666. And in the course of that, they talk about Crowley. And I read a lot of Crowley when I was a lad. Actually, I bought a copy of the Book of Thoth in 7th grade. So, I mean, I was reading Crowley way early, which, might explain some of the issues. But anyway, one of the books, he had a number of books that are fictional, like Moonchild and Diary of a Drug Fiend, semi-fictional. It was a way to be able to talk about and to gloat about his activities and experiences as a spy or agent provocateur under color of fiction, which is, of course, a time-honored thing that former spooks do. And in that book, they talk about one of Crowley's Liber such and such. And it was a collection of his observations using drugs in a magical way, which, of course, would cover a lot of what we would consider just straightforward psychological manipulation. And I think, wow, here's this guy who's a spy, who's doing his things in World War I, coming to the U.S. and apparently playing some significant role in convincing the Germans through his connections with their own intelligence services in the United States, playing a role in convincing the Germans to sink the Lusitania, to create bad press and a pretext for the United States to enter the war on the side of Britain. And he's doing things like this. And during this period, he's gathering notes, as it is documented, on his experimentation with drugs. And it seems that these notes included discussions of how they could be used to manipulate others. And of course, you've got the business of people like Aldous Huxley and Brave New World and some of the psychedelics, mescaline. You've got Timothy Leary and the idea of the CIA experimenting with LSD. And other things that are, of course, earlier than Leary. I don't want to get too deeply into that because I don't know much about it, and I have to suspect that we've probably got half a dozen people watching, even with this small audience, who've delved deeply into that and know a lot about it. So I don't want to step on my dick. But certainly we know that there is this long-standing experimentation, changing consciousness through the use of a drug, and that can run through from a person like Huxley, who, if I remember correctly, got his wife to dose him with an enormous shot of LSD before he died. Puts a new spin on palliative care, right? And then you've got people like Leary that we already talked about, getting out and spreading his message of, tune in, turn on, and drop out. You have people like Richard Alpert and what's the other guy? Ram Dass. God damn it, I can't remember. Is he Alpert? There are 3 of them who did the book The Psychedelic Experience. And I still have a 1960s copy of that I inherited from some anarchist going under the name of Jim Black, who blew his head off. I was in high school, and because I had come over to his girlfriend's daughter's house. I was going to school with her in high school, and I was way into her. And she had me over for dinner one time, and he was asking when I was in high school about what I was doing. And I was like, oh, I did a report on Nestor Makhno, and I, went and did research with primary materials and stuff. He's like, that's master's level research and stuff, and you're doing it in high school? I'm like, yeah. And anyway, after he killed himself, his girlfriend and her daughter, my friend, decided that he probably would have wanted me to have his books, and I have them. Anyway, that's a tangent. So yeah, Ram Dass, who was the one of the co-authors of that book, The Psychedelic Experience, which fits into trying to push that out into culture, he came and visited my school when I was in high school. He came and talked to us in the auditorium for the gifted program, and talked about being sexually aroused while swimming with dolphins and shit like that. But the point is that there was a period of time, and it's ongoing, but there was a pioneering period of time that really seems to run from the 30s when and earlier with people like Crowley, but as a cultural weapon, it seemed to start in some elite spheres in the 30s, 40s. Maybe I'm off on that. Maybe it's the 50s, but certainly by the 50s, you had the Beats going crazy. You had Ginsberg writing poems like Howl. You had Kerouac. You had all the William S. Burroughs stuff that's just a hellscape of every kind of drug use with heavy emphasis on smack. And so you have the emergence of these drugs as weapons and as a cultural lever, which kind of brings us around to what this is all about, why I sort of coined, and I'm probably not the first one to do it, I'd be surprised if I was, but this idea of narcocratic culture. And I tie it to cryptocratic culture because you can see a definite connection between kind of liminal intelligence figures like a Crowley and the way in which those people operated at the limits of what was acceptable, and indeed they used the leeway that they were granted in pursuit of whatever their mission was. They would exploit it to live just about however they wanted, like Crowley sodomizing Neuberg and the so-called Paris working, or the Abbey of Thelema in Italy, wherever it was during Mussolini's period before Mussolini kicked Crowley out. Books like his Diary of a Drug Fiend. I mean, shit, it's going to go back to things like Confessions of an English Opium Eater? I can't remember. It's De Quincey. It's been going on for some time, but it was only in the 50s, I think, and in the 60s that it really got weaponized and used heavily. And then you got things like the war on drugs as a consequence. I mean, it served any number of functions. But let me go back to my notes here so I don't wander too much, because I want to get to the gist of this, and there is one. So Crowley is a spy who's exploiting the leeway that he's been granted in pursuit of his operations to do whatever the hell he wants. And you've also got the idea of sort of duper's delight, which spy types, and I cannot, confirm that any of the people that I thought were probably spies are or were, but I believe they were. And those that seem to fit that mold that I encountered, whom I encountered, they seem to very much enjoy. They all have a certain whiff to them of being in on the joke, of having a back door to resolve things, of having ways around things that would cause problems for other people. And also, I think there's a certain personality type drawn to it that is, to use a sort of barbarous modern word, transgressive. Personality types that are transgressive, that enjoy being able to step beyond the bounds of what is considered acceptable behavior, sometimes to hide it, but certainly to get away with it. That's that duper's delight dimension. These kind of people, you've got secret societies, as I've discussed in the series Light and Darkness. They're always fundamentally secret services. And secret services are always fundamentally secret societies. So any attempt to divide those things conceptually in terms of how the categories are framed seems to me highly questionable. And so you have to understand that secret services operating as they do in secret for the most part, shaping culture, they are staffed by these kinds of people, or at least were once upon a time, by these kinds of people, much like Crowley. And I think we should heed that and consider the implications. You know, Crowley, as I said, he's representative of the type. So you've got basically degenerate spies who use drugs to influence behavior, and they tend to look at the world in that innately transgressive sense that I mentioned. And the people, as I described, that enter the trade, they must enjoy the sense of transgression, of having a secret out, of being sanctioned in their deception, of in some sense of bearing letters of marque. And yet these are the very people who would be tasked with shaping our culture. So, think about how people would be upset with a Roman tax collection regimen. And that's because of the people who would be collecting the taxes, that the people themselves enjoying the system that has been imposed upon them. These are the people, the tax collectors, that the general public would encounter in the course of their lives. Having blood squeezed from the stone, having extra chickens taken, being forced to melt down their silver sets in order to make good on what they owed in terms of the contract that whoever the negotiator was had bought off of the Roman treasury. My point is that though you've got a vast apparatus involved in conceiving, in implementing, and in applying a particular program of, anything from public works to social engineering, nevertheless, it's the ones who actually touch the people, the actors, the operatives, who enjoy a much more... They have a significant role to play in terms of how it all comes to pass, because they're the ones tasked with actually pulling the lever on it, doing the things, grabbing the person's head and turning them so they look at this, whispering such and such in somebody's ear. And as as I've just discussed, Crowley seems to be representative of a type, or at least he was once upon a time. And I think that time ran at least from... I don't know. I go back and forth. World War I, sometimes I think of as a starting point, because Crowley was involved at that point, but he was very much pioneering. I think more realistically, it's probably the 30s, and it really gathers steam after World War II with that Kerouac and Beat generation and Burroughs and these kind of people. And then you have the fungal efflorescence of the 1960s, where you see it heavy, where drugs are pushed and it's all about transgressive behavior. You get the usual things in art and in music of crude, emotionally contrasting juxtapositions that are intended. Again, there's this idea of transgression. I don't know. I guess what I'm getting at, and it's not being particularly well articulated at this point, is that you had a certain type of pioneering person, and for a few generations, they seemed to share certain characteristics, and they were tasked, presumably, through their secret operations, with shaping culture, everything from what today gets called predictive programming to manipulation in the art world. The subject is vast, and there are a lot of other people who know more about it, who could talk more knowledgeably and authoritatively about it. But the point is that this was undertaken for quite some time. A certain type of person was responsible for putting it into practice, to running the operations. And those types of people have a certain kind of personality of their own, and so they would have a corresponding outsized influence on how it all came to pass, because they were the ones who were actually getting their hands dirty, making it happen. And they could not help but shape and express things in a fashion that was in keeping with their own character. And again, I think somebody like Crowley is representative of the type. And then you have I'm all over the place. So let me close that thought out before I jump over to the other one. So that's one thing to look at. You have these transgressive, pioneering, drug-addled, and often quite degenerate. I mean, think of somebody like fucking Bill Burroughs. It's hard to imagine being, well, I would say it's hard to imagine being more degenerate than Crowley, but certainly like an Allen Ginsberg and a William Burroughs or Brian Geisen. You know, these people are certainly more degenerate by any objective standard, even than a Crowley. And so those people, their type has had, I think, an outsized influence on where our culture has gone. Again, because the cryptocratic dimension is the idea that there must be government from behind the scenes in secret. And then one of the selected weapons used to manipulate populations is drugs, the deployment of drugs. And so you've got this linking, as I'm phrasing it for shorthand here, of cryptocratic and narcocratic. You know, the drugs themselves become a tool of government. And we see this quite explicitly everywhere from the DSM-5 or 6 or whatever it is at this point. You know, things like Paxil and the rest, to personality disorders and the kinds of prescriptions that are given for them. You know, by creating the category, you create people who identify with it, and where their characteristics and personality don't conform to it, once they learn about what the expected characteristics are, they talk about how they have them. It's kind of like with astrology. Surely everyone here has seen people who they're like, I'm a Leo, and they don't know what the fuck that means. But after reading enough, you know, Sunday news articles on Leo sun sign, they start to talk about themselves as though they have these characteristics because they've been taught to think as though they have them. Likewise, for someone who says that they're bipolar, or, you know, they suffer from narcissistic personality disorder, or whatever. There's that governing aspect and the shaping of society through drugs. And on the one hand, again, to close that thought out, you've got a certain type of person that I think we should all think about. You know, if Machiavelli thinks about the prince who has certain characteristics and he shapes society, this would almost be like, okay, well, let's assume a cryptocratic system that relies upon people who surface to an extent, or at least to such an extent that we can at times identify them. And particularly when there have been a number of intervening decades, like for the 30s, you know, we can now look into stuff. The 50s, that things have been declassified. You know, for the 60s, oddly enough, they're still sitting on all kinds of stuff, and they don't want that to come out because it's quite relevant, I think, to the present. So you've got that type of person. Then you've got the idea of drugs as a weapon in and of itself. And as I was driving, listening to these people on the radio and the rest, I was thinking to myself, man, who comes up with the idea of using drugs as a weapon to subjugate an entire society? Who comes up with that idea? And then I started thinking to myself, well, where the hell did it come from? And of course, the go-to thing to think about is the use of opium, allegedly backed by Westerners who sort of found an existing culture in the Far East and amplified it because they could make it very profitable. And that seems to fit with things like caffeine, sugar, any number of other things. This is where it gets really weird because, you know, you've got the Greek sort of overlapping Venn diagram where you have drug, medicine, and poison, and all those things come together, as famously discussed by Derrida, you know, as the idea of pharmakon. So any drug is always already also a poison, always already also a medicine. Likewise, any medicine is always already a drug and a poison, etc. And so that gets very interesting. Using drugs, and depending on how you define it, remember that could run from sugar to coffee to opium to fentanyl to alcohol, and the various attempts to socially engineer. I mean, we certainly can see very early with the whole movement for God, I'm so fucked up and old. Or is it the whiskey? Prohibition. We see that people wanted to socially engineer by taking it out of the mix. But it's a very interesting thing, and I think it marks a significant shift in the trajectory towards truly unrestricted warfare for those who will come later and write a history of such things. This transition to using drugs as weapons to subjugate populations. And I wonder, I mean, maybe other people, if you know about it, you can get me at semiagog@protonmail.com, or you can hit me, not in the chat tonight, because I haven't really had time to look at it much, but you can hit me in the comments below once this thing posts, and you can leave comments. If you know of anything earlier than the opium business in China with Western powers sort of encouraging that, you know, and things like the appearance of laudanum in the West, or you know, the whole crossover between pharmacies and beverages that also ties to the prohibition, where basically they said, we got to get them off of alcohol because it's not productive. Let's get them on caffeine and sugar because we can make it, you know, highly profitable, but we can tell all the barley water drinking, you know, temperance society women, you know, who carry banners that say lips that have touched liquor will never touch mine. You know, we can get them on board with it because we're taking this other thing out. Actually, that occurs to me. It's very, very interesting. Even the instance where they claimed to be removing alcohol, which was seen as a kind of social poison, that was precisely the time where, you know, it's kind of like that meme that shows Indiana Jones and he's rolling the one thing onto the little pressure trigger, you know, or a child where you have to take one toy out of its hand, but if you don't want it to cry, you have to put another one in. They move seamlessly to replace the alcohol that led to risks of workplace injuries and fighting and belligerence. They replaced it with caffeine and sugar to keep people wound up. And still, we celebrate that. Still, that's the idea of being a real person who's really in the proper middle class and is a professional. You know, you get up in the morning and you go get your venti something latte grande doubles something with a shot of something, or whatever the fuck they call those things. Everyone still celebrates that, but they're getting a massive dose of the acceptable drug that the establishment provides. And that was brought in as a replacement for the one that they decided was unacceptable because it was socially objectionable and it got in the way of them having the most efficient group of workers. Now, that said, none of these things are ever really simple. If you look into the history of like people just getting shit-faced drunk on, you know, at the wharves or whatever in some place in Britain, and you know, women getting so drunk that they drop their baby off the dock because they're all stinking of gin. I mean, there were real problems. And so I don't mean to suggest that this was only well, it's just like today. You don't have anything that's just simply one thing. There's always the idea of riding piggyback or sticking to it like a remora, you know, and flowing through the water with it. If you have a social reaction to something that is genuinely objectionable and could be addressed in some fashion that would improve it, then that becomes your opportunity. It's like, you know, don't let a crisis go to waste, all the rest. Everybody here is very everybody here is very familiar with that. But to me, it seems a very interesting subject that we should really look into. And I guess there's, I had a whole nother subject about metaphors of knowing. I'm not going to go into this tonight, though, because I have to do the one with the 3 lullabies of the devouring mother, or everyone's going to feel cheated because I made that the main act. But just to end on this subject, you know, look at the drug, the use of drugs to sway populations, and then think about that remark by Marx about how religion is the opiate of the masses. And I quite cleverly, allow me to pat myself on the back, reframed that, and I think it's still pinned on Twitter, by saying that democracy is the opiate of the masses. I mean, shit, the fact that Marx could be talking about it as he did when he did, that's what do they call it? Qua ante or what? Fuck, I can't remember the Latin frame for it, but it would give us a date that it certainly could not be later than that this was underway fully, because for Marx to use it as a metaphor means that it had impressed itself upon the consciousness of people in that time and in those places. So yeah, so what's that, 1840s? I don't know. I can't remember the date of when and where he published that, but it's deep waters, and I think we should pay attention to it. And really what I was getting at there before I started brain wandering thinking about Marx was the democracy itself really is its own kind of drug. You can get a high with your envy and your ability to throw down those that you thought lorded over you, and to trample them and, stack up the bodies of the kulaks like cordwood or all the various things, the recently freed slaves that go off on an orgy of rape and slaughter, the Roman example just escaped, like a Saturnalia in some sense. Everything has been upended and inverted, but without any of the constraining cultural features of something like the Saturnalia. Something more like this Saturnalia brought down to date, which is just a repulsive series of political pamphlets. The movies that they call God damn it, I can't remember anything anymore. The Purge, all those movies, which just grew increasingly fucking leftist and shitty. That's another thing we could talk about. That I do want to talk about is the fucking problem with writers of media content now. But anyway, last little thing to put a flag in is this idea that democracy itself, if you think about rewarding people like within the framework of bio-Leninism, and you think about the brain chemistry involved, and for example, what we could talk about is I don't know enough about neurobiology, I guess you would call it, to say much, but certainly we could imagine dopamine rewards that come with bio-Leninism. So if you take within a bio-Leninist framework someone who absolutely is not qualified for the job and put them into that position where they can lord it over others who really are their betters, there is a dopamine reward in that Saturnalia aspect of turning everything upside down. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you take into account bio-Leninism, brain chemistry, and envy, this entire idea of making war with drugs, of social engineering with drugs, gets vastly expanded and has sort of a broader purview. And there are all kinds of interesting aspects of this that I think are worth our consideration. The last thing I'll say is that the early pioneering phases of this that I mentioned are very interesting. People like Huxley, like I said, or like Crowley or Leary, or more broadly, people like Burroughs, who I already mentioned, or people like Norman Mailer. The whole basic idea. I'm not just saying with drugs, because I don't know if that was a big thing for Mailer. I mean, even going back to what's his name? Lady Chatterley's lover. Is that D. Lawrence? God, I can't remember shit anymore. I'm old. There has been a program of pushing the boundaries. And, well, let me leave that aside. The important thing is that the early practitioners were pioneering in a certain sense, and they really did experiment with the drugs and really did have to fight their way free of certain cultural aspects that might have very well been cloying or that might very well have seemed to be things that should be overturned in order to give people room to breathe, right? But as I said, the last thing I want to cover here is that we have the bio-Leninism itself. How do I say this? The reality of bio-Leninism that we have all considered when it comes to affirmative, or not, let's say diversification programs for pilots, or for dam engineers, or for people responsible for the electrical grid, or, who make sure that your water that you drink doesn't have coliform bacteria in it. We've all thought quite a bit about what bio-Leninism would do to these things that matter, like a bridge might collapse on you, right? Or, all the other things that we enjoy in our current year. But what happens with the bio-Leninism as it affects the secret services, which I already mentioned are already secret societies? And people have already thought about that because of the recent advertisements that they had for like the CIA, and you had like, fucked up, ethnically indeterminate people who don't know what their sex is, talking about how they're so happy to be working for the CIA now, and it's a different organization, and they're here to, create disruptive change, or whatever the fucking blather is that they come up with. People have looked at that. What I'm getting at is come all the way back to what I mentioned earlier, which is these people are the lever pullers for the cryptocracy, and so they wield outsized influence because they're there where the rubber meets the road, implementing the various programs. And yet they're just increasingly idiots and morons. It's really shocking. Now, I'm never going to make the mistake of thinking that the people who tell them what to do are morons, or that the people who tell those people what to do are morons, as you like. However, there is a reality here. Let's just say that as objectionable as Crowley was, certainly in any number of ways, he's a vastly more competent figure than, for example, Naquisha is the new, NSA or CIA operative. So the last little piece to put in there is when you think about the cryptocracy and its narcocrat operatives who are tasked with implementing change, what happens with when bio-Leninism takes its toll there? We have now a sort of institutionalized inheritor of these crazy pioneering people like a Burroughs or a Crowley. Now we have, I don't even know what we have. We have, people like Judith Butler, or even worse, you've got people like, God, no good names come to mind because I've got too much whiskey in me now, but you've got a paint by numbers DSM-5 kind of world where the powers that be foster certain types of neuroses across population cohorts, because that makes their behavior more predictable. So that too, I think, is something that we should think about. So that's number 2. I'm going to skip the one on metaphors, but it's really interesting, man. It's the whole idea of metaphors as a basis for shared understanding and communication. But like if you work in a vineyard, and a lot of people in your region work in vineyards, then there are going to be certain ways that you can describe things related to the experiences of working in a vineyard and what dealing with vines in a particular way does, and how that shapes their future growth. That could be a kind of cultural technology in a very loose sense, to discuss, and more importantly, to understand, which is the prerequisite for the former, certain social engineering things like pinching off a bud that's going to grow in a particular direction because the vines need to work in a certain way. But yeah, I'm going to have to talk about that another time. Basically, the really short version, I just can't avoid saying it, is that we're deprived of metaphors. God, I can't avoid saying it. This is only going to take like 2 minutes. I have to say it. We have a situation where somebody like Academic Agent has got to go digging into fucking Batman in order to find some prima materia, some basic substance that everybody is familiar with, so he can turn it different ways in the light to consider its significance. The problem with that is, first off, that Batman's fucking stupid. Sorry, but it's fucking stupid. But leaving that aside, even if we want to argue about that and you want to say, no, it's not tied to nature. If you use childbirth as a series of metaphors for understanding, if you use viticulture or whatever the fuck you call it, dealing with vines, if you use cattle raising, if you use forestry, if you use being a sailor and dealing with the winds and the seasons, or having to navigate based on the stars, if you use any of these things as metaphors, they are deeply related to the facts of existence, which means sort of in our own mirrors, we're reflecting an object that God created. So if we're going to like navel gaze and jerk off in the mirrors that we use to speculate, we're going to at least be doing it with an image that carries whatever authenticity creation itself does as a basis. Whereas if we turn around to Batman, yes, I know you can sort of say, well, there's this sort of dark figure and it's an anti-hero and it has deeper roots and we can see it's, yes, but it's the most pathetic, dumbed down, tissue thin, imbecilic sort of last gasp of some shit that's been brought down to date. And that's what pisses me off about the loss of our metaphors. If these metaphors mean something, they connect to what is true. And so if there is truth in the thing that you are using as a metaphor to understand another thing, then you take that truth in whatever vestigial form it has and use it as a lamp to understand this other thing. But on the other hand, if you have a reflection of a reflection of a reflection, and that's putting it fucking charitably, mind you, when I'm talking about Batman, and then you're going to use that metaphor as a way to understand this other thing, you're already in a fucking labyrinth of feces. You're already so lost in the products of man. Like, look at what a dog does. Look at what a bird does. Look at those two categories, and you can say they share certain features. That must be a characteristic of life. And you can say, wow, that's grounded in something. But whether or not fucking Robin or Catwoman, you know, I'm not going to be vulgar like that. These things are so far from anything that has a true font and origin that the metaphor you're dealing with as applied to some circumstance in your life that you want to be able, as I said, to understand and talk about with others, the whole basis is so withered. It's like a tit that doesn't give milk. It's a tit that gives dust. Batman is a tit that gives dust. You try to fucking suckle it to grow and be nurtured, and you go... That's what happens when we don't have metaphors that attach to anything that has any relationship to reality. So, yeah, I haven't done live streams in a while, so your mileage may vary. Okay, so now we are going to turn to this business of the 3 lullabies of the devouring mother. And I just have some notes. I feel sure that everyone listening, or those of you with, you know, the ability to think, everyone here, no doubt, will have seen the kind of things that I'm talking about. I just found my own way to group them because it's very, very interesting to me. You know, I look at the messaging that is in the various TV programs that I still watch sometimes, and now, unfortunately, it's sort of like someone who has to do autopsies on corpses. As the writers get so shitty and bioleninism takes its toll in all these spaces that masquerade as entertainment, what you are watching becomes just more and more flattened. I mean, it kind of goes in the direction of, Batman multiplied by Batman, which yields this sort of withered half thing, half dead Batman. Anyway, the point is that you can only look at it. You can no longer enjoy it. You can no longer suspend disbelief. You can no longer lose yourself in this story, secure in the idea that some aspects of human stories are timeless, and so surely something will come through. It doesn't work that way anymore. The writers are fucking insane. I mean, yeah, in the 70s you would see or you could watch an A-Team TV show, and everyone would shoot at each other for the entire length of the episode. I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever it came out to after the breaks for advertisement were factored in. I can't remember. Don't care enough about television. But the point is that entire time it could be ridiculous in certain senses, but at least it had these basic sort of articulating joints, right, that would move in a particular way. You'd be like, well, if you sort of hold the joint up this way, this is going to be the range of its swing, right? You didn't get the kind of thing where you had a master of a particular kind of storytelling where you're like, oh, this character has range. He can be a villain and yet a hero, and we can experience what they're going through. And it wasn't this kind of movement, but it was this. It was workable. You could say, oh, it moves this way, and this is its full extension, and it comes back. There's this range of movement in a character or in a plot that that doesn't plunge you into icy cold disbelief. But what's happening now is that it's as fucked up as a football bat. It's all this kind of shit. The characters say things and do things, even between one 10-second sequence and another, that don't have anything to do with anything. They don't connect in any way. They don't make any sense in any way. And you just see it over and over and over again. And again, you're looking at it, or in my case, what I'm doing, trying to express by way of this long-winded prologue, what I'm doing is I'm forced now, because I cannot derive any entertainment diversion from these things. I'm forced to just look at them. You get a stronger and stronger stomach, and it's like, okay, unzip the bag. I realize that it's very, very wet, and there's going to be little to identify about the corpse, but let's just get it over with. Unzip the bag. Let's take a look. Yes, just kind of shovel that part of it over here closer, and maybe we can get an approximation of a face. Can you figure out the gender? Well, no, it's all rotted. It's the bones. That's my feeling as I look at what's called entertainment. And I see certain themes appear in the sickness. So in watching these television programs, I almost feel like a shrink who is, bug, who is forced to deal with the delusional material presented by the subject, to try to make sense of what it could mean about what's going on inside them, even though it's fucking barking mad. And so in the course of looking at these television programs, I've seen certain themes, and they're key. I had a little bit of help from some people on Twitter when I was first looking at this. I put out a call for things that people see consistently in television programs, and I had some of the answers were quite good, and I appreciate that, peeps. Thank you. So much of what I talk about here is informed by some of the help that I got on Twitter, but I came up with sort of three groupings, and they're very, very interesting. I guess I should talk about these three groupings or themes that I call the lullabies of the devouring mother. First off, there are probably more. These are just the ones that I found at this point. and I have enough of examples of them to show the odd way in which it's a very smeared, blurry, indistinct, half-melted wax kind of figure. There's nothing clear about it because they're all fucking insane. But these key themes kind of appear again and again across these television programs as, I guess, as moral norms. They're the things that are constantly taken for granted that appear as these sort of trite truisms in dialogue again and again in the course of these various television programs. And at this point, it's almost like revealed preference versus stated. Of course, we're talking about propaganda produced by a particular class that's not certainly reflective of the entire population, but that class that produces the content is at this point now large enough, and it's producing enough of its content that you can look at them as a group and kind of try to see sort of what's behind the more unconscious productions of these bio-Leninist cohorts that produce the stinking slop that we're supposed to accept as entertainment. And I've broken them down into sort of three groups. There are three sort of themes that appear in different ways, different facets, so to speak. So the first one, I don't know, I call it maybe the mother. I call it sometimes the transsexual mother. I certainly call it the devouring mother, but the sort of key umbrella over all of it is the idea that you are not alone. No, you are not alone. And there are certain tropes that you see in dialogue that always appear. So one of them that I've captured here is, I'm not going to let that happen. The number of times on an adult-pated bio-Leninist TV program that you hear someone say, I'm not going to let that happen, is statistically, it's through the fucking roof. It's ridiculous. Another one is the kind of dialogue where the character turns to the other who's experiencing some crisis and says, look at me. I'm here for you. I'm not going anywhere. You see how that dovetails with the idea of I'm not going to let that happen? Another one of these tropes that you just constantly see is we're going to get through this together. So all the time you see these sort of sets of themes, and I'm sure that like now that you guys start thinking about it, you guys could probably come up like right now with like 15 other examples that are basically facets of that same idea. I'm not going to let that happen. Look at me. I'm here for you. I'm not going anywhere, or we're going to get through this together. I call this, you are not alone. The freak family is here. So this is one of sort of the key elements that we've seen with or that I've seen with the various television programs. Again, I'm looking for their revealed, the way in which they may more or less unconsciously reveal the sort of pillars of their moral worldview. And again, it's like trying to sketch something on cinder blocks with your own feces, right? Like, I'm not saying that these are real works of art, right? I'm saying, like, if we're looking at the slobbering imbeciles that occupy the insane asylum, there's certain patterns. And according to the dialogue that I see in television programs that's produced by these bio-Leninist cohorts, this is a key theme that occupies them that you see across different television programs. I'm not going to let that happen. Look at me. I'm here for you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. I mean, shit. You guys, again, could probably come up with more of these. We're going to get through this together. I'm here if you want to talk. I'm here if you just need someone to listen. And this is often counterposed in the television programs against that one character that's always saying, I don't need anyone. I can take care of myself. And then, of course, they get brought back around. They get brought back to the fucking dust tit of the devouring mother. with I'm here if you want to talk. When you're ready. I don't mean to press you. I'm not here to judge. If you ever want someone to just listen. Again, that's one of the key nodes. That's one of the three. You are not alone. The freak family is here. It's a weird collectivist idea. And they go through the most ridiculous contortions trying to accommodate, jamming their diverse world together as though these relationships would in fact hold between these different ethnic groups. And no, they wouldn't. But my mission this evening is not to show the ridiculous inconsistencies in their worldview, because that's sort of like, dragging through it endlessly. Okay, so there's the next one. The next of the three lullabies of the devouring mother, as revealed in a lot of these television programs, and I call it the holy diagnosis. And basically, you will hear it constantly, and it's the funniest fucking shit ever. And it is this: someone will have a gun pointed to their head, and they will look up and they will say, "You don't have to do this." Or they'll say, "It doesn't have to be this way." And so the best that I can translate that is basically, like, if I try to explain what all of that means, it goes like this. You can shape reality by telling those with power over you that they're powerless if they keep doing what they're doing, which is exercising power over you. And that thing you're otherwise powerless to stop, of course, right? Their exercise of power over you. If they keep exercising power over you, which of course you're powerless to stop, then they'll be powerless. And that they should instead do what you tell them, because it doesn't have to be this way and they don't have to do it. Yeah, lol. It's so fucked up that it's actually a little bit difficult to get it across. It's fundamentally utopian. It's premised on the notion that social engineering works, that passion and instinct can be defeated by prostration and whining. It's very, very strange. I call it the holy diagnosis, because the guy who's upset with you, who's decided that he's going to like pull the trigger or whatever on you and kill you, he's looking down at you. You're utterly fucking powerless. And yet you invoke the holy diagnosis. And you just look at him and you say, "You don't have to do this." Like a Jewish psychiatrist or something, you say, "It doesn't have to be this way." And suddenly, bow, that's it. He says, "Oh my God, you're right. In my absolute power over you that extended so far that I was willing and able and prepared to take your life. And you couldn't do anything about it. But because you invoked the holy diagnosis, I'm going to put this gun down and not kill you and rape your wife, because you've convinced me that actually when I was powerful and able to do whatever I wanted to and with you, I was actually powerless because I didn't know that it didn't have to be this way, and you were able to tell me." It's so fucked up that it's a little bit like that old video that Morgoth used to run for Hate Reading the Guardian, where the guy in the protective suit immerses himself in shit. Like, to try to make sense of something so fucked up is like trying to navigate through a sewer full of thousands of cubic gallons of human feces. It's insane. But yeah, that's one of the two. So let's again review what we've covered. There's the what I call the freak family is here. You are not alone. And then we have the holy diagnosis. You can shape reality by telling those with power over you that they're powerless if they keep doing what they're doing, that thing you're otherwise powerless to stop, and should instead do what you tell them because it doesn't have to be this way. And that's fundamentally feminine. It's fundamentally feminine. The degree to which the feminine outlook, well, let's say a sick perversion of the feminine outlook, the degree to which it holds sway is really one of the only things that I can think of that explains what we're talking about here. Okay, so let's get to the last one, and then we can get to Ask Me Anything, and you guys can give me shit and or whatever. This is the one that I call the truly devouring mother, right? Because sort of, you are not alone, the freak family is here. There's a degree of collectivism. There's a degree of sense in it, right? Cooperation has its place, and we do have our peoples, or certainly our peeps, and our families, and our friends, right? And those people have a place. I mean, I had a week where I had to sit here doing nothing because I couldn't find someone to help me get my washer, dryer, and mattress upstairs. So, there are all kinds of people who want to talk about individualism and the rest, and I'm like, well, what do you do if you need someone to pick shit up at the other end? You need other people. So I'm not trying to say that that this is totally off the deep end, but as I said before, they always stick like a remora to the body of the shark to ride something that is otherwise justifiable. They always move under color of some kind of stalking horse. So, you are not alone. The freak family is here. Another one, the holy diagnosis, which is always fundamentally feminine, which is, it doesn't have to be this way. I mean, if you were trying to come up with a short form version of utopianism, is there anything more fundamental that really nails it than blubbering, it doesn't have to be this way, in situations that obviously do have to be this way? If you've pissed off a ghetto teen, let's say a pack of ghetto teens, and they are upset with you and they have power over you, we've seen what they'll do. Try saying it doesn't have to be this way, and the idea is it's such a beautiful summary of utopianism and the fact that all attempts at social engineering are doomed to fail. It doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to do this. Fuck off. And the third one, now to come around, I think of it as the truly devouring mother. And if you don't have experience with a true devouring mother, then it will be hard for you to understand. But imagine, Shelob in The Lord of the Rings, the great fat spider. That's what a devouring mother is like. That's why I chose the thumbnail that I did for this episode, because, man, it's that aspect of femininity that has moved beyond the maiden. It's given birth to the child, now a mother, but it fears that it will lose that identity because crone comes next. And so it clings to whatever it can to maintain its identity that it has. It does not want to let the creature out of the nest. It is the devouring mother. And man, this trope that we see in the television programs is very much that. It's to devour anything that could be based on this axiom. No matter what, don't do what works. Can you imagine someone who would teach their children that no matter what, they shouldn't do what works? Now, I understand that there are moral dimensions. Some things should be beyond the pale. Other things should be reserved for emergencies. And then you have the nice fire circle with its amber light to gather around. Not fucking amber like this. This is not amber. This is not the orange light of candles coming through the fucking window of a warm inn when I'm cold outside and passing on the high road. This is not that amber light. But yes, in the center there is the fire circle of the things that the women and children can all participate in. And then there is the colder area where colder men have to sit out there and stand watch. As my old friend Tim used to say, the horny-handed men, who stay awake when you are asleep in order to make sure that you can continue to exist, right? They're further out. Who would come along and tell their children, whether as a mother or a social engineer in this cryptocratic, narcocratic, gynocratic freak show, who would come along and tell their children that no matter what, they shouldn't do what works? Well, apparently, everybody and their brother thinks that we all shouldn't do what works. I've got a lot of examples from the TV programs on this one. Here's one. Ready? That would make you just like him. What? Dominant and shaping events? Here's another one. But then you'd be no better than him. Definitely don't do that, then. Or, you're better than that. That's another angle that always appears with these. You will hear this one endlessly in the TV programs. That would make you just like him, but then you'd be no better than him. You're better than that. Here's another one. Sinking to their level. Don't sink to their level. What do you mean? The one that's running things? Here's another one. I love this one. It's not who we are. Never used to describe, for example, groomers. That expression is always used to enforce relative pacifism and leniency. Constantly. Here's another one. It's not worth it. And my favorite, it won't make you feel any better. Okay, so imagine telling... Here's one for you. You got Conan the Barbarian. Well, Conan the fucking Austrian in the first Conan movie. And they say, tell me, Conan, what is best in life? He says, to crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of the women. Can you imagine if the Mongol rip-off warlord, modeled on a Mongol in the movie, turned and said, well, that would make you just like him. Oh, well, Conan, then you'd be no better than him. Or, oh, Conan, you're better than that. Pit fighters are better than that. Oh, Conan, you wouldn't want to sink to their level, would you? Or Lenin. Swap it out. Don't call it Conan. Call it fucking Lenin. Oh, Vladimir, it's not who we are. It's not who we are. I tell you, it is not worth it. You have to consider that it won't make you feel any better. Give me a fucking break. These three poisonous tropes appear everywhere. Everywhere. Across the board. And I would invite all of you to look attentively at the television programs that are out there and try to identify other ones of these. I keep a little notepad around because, again, it's like a fucking autopsy. It's not entertainment anymore. And I note down these different themes that appear because these people do not have, at this level, after the cannons of bio-Leninism have been emptied into the ranks on the battlefield and nobody can see for the smoke and the splintered fucking shell casings and shrapnel and the moaning bodies on the field, bio-Leninism has made a mess of it. These people not only don't have an explicit presentation of their ideas and beliefs, they're not capable of fucking producing one. The best that you're going to get is this slobbering fucking, yeah, but make you just like them. That's it. If you want to understand what their religion is, what I'm saying, or at least the religion they're pushing, and that many of them have adopted, you have to kind of read between the lines in terms of the dialogue to see what kind of key themes are appearing again and again. And don't expect them to make sense. Don't expect them to be particularly coherent. As I said, you don't have like a clean plot movement, of a hinge joint. You certainly don't have the complex movements of a ball joint. You've got some, and that is what for them passes for entertainment. And in it is possible to identify further themes. But these three, which I offer to all of you, dear listeners, are the first one, you're not alone. The freak family is here. The second one, which is fundamentally feminine, the holy diagnosis, which is, it doesn't have to be this way. And all I had to do was hear it. I was ready to shoot his ass, and he just said, it doesn't have to be this way. And I said, oh, what? Oh my God, I never thought about it that way. And the third one, which is no matter what, don't do what works. That'd make you just like him. Then you'd be no better than him. It's not worth it. It wouldn't make you feel any better. Tits filled with poisonous dust. All right. That covers the basic things that I wanted to talk about tonight. Normally I cut these at 2 hours, but I'll go a little bit over, and take questions. So what questions do you have, ladies and gentlemen, for me? At this point, since I did go, almost 2 hours blathering and bitching, it sounds like I can open up the Ask Me Anything to cover everything. So what kind of questions do you have? Fucking Jonathan Pohl. Yay, the TV discussion is over. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh. What do you have for me, peoples? Alabaster asks, Semigog, first, how is the bug problem? Well, you can't see it in here, but these ceilings are insulated, and there are a bunch of carpenter ants right over there in the ceiling, and you could hear them doing their fucking shit. I got some fipronil foam. I took a screwdriver. I said, fuck it, they're not in the wood, because I could see the nails where the rafters are and the studs, and the noise was coming from in between the nails. I can't remember what they were on center, but anyway. So I said, fuck it, I'm not going to have to worry about pulling the insulation down and having a whole shitload of insects just pile in their thousands on my head while I'm on top of a ladder. Instead, what I can do is just take this fucking screwdriver like a shank and go through the insulation, and then I stuck the little proboscis of a can of fipronil foam up through it, and I went and I filled the entire gap with deeply poisonous foam. And they continued to make their little sounds for about 24 hours. And then all was silent. So that leaves the carpenter bees and the scorpions. But carpenter bees first. I'm spraying the fipronil foam in their holes. And then I'm going to wait a little bit. And I'm going to dust them with Dryone dust. I can't remember what it is I'm going to dust them thoroughly. And then I'm going to seal all their various holes. Apparently wasps are coming next. So who the fuck knows? Scorpions, I just smash them with rocks if they're outside. And inside I've had three. One in the sink when I was brushing my teeth, so it was like 5 inches from me and came crawling up out of the fucking drain. They're not really big. They're East Coast U.S. scorpions, and they're not going to kill anybody, but they're off-putting, and it would doubtless be painful to have them sting you. So yeah, I'm just going to continue to vacuum them up, kill them, you know, they're scads and scads and scads of big ass wolf spiders and the rest. Yeah, so I guess that covers insects. Better than cockroaches and bed bugs and gingers. Yeah. What's next? Next question. Oh, yeah. Of course. Scorpions are arachnids. Correct. So, next question. If you guys don't have good questions, I'm just going to bail the fuck out of here because I only have one cigarette left and my whiskey's gone. Let me see if I can get a little bit out of here. Ooh, just a drizzle. It's kind of sad. Come on now. Oh, this is a bad scene. The other thing is that I have to walk between buildings. My whole life now is walking between buildings because the metal building does not have a good web connection because it screws up the signal for the wireless anyway. So I have to come over here to the wooden building in order to do anything with the internet. So I'm constantly walking across this yard. I've never been in the sun this much in my life. It's fucked up. Fucking sun, it's gonna burn me. It's making spots appear on my hands. I'm getting old. Everything's fucking old. Do not ask for whom the bell tolls. All right, next question. Charlemagne says build an underground passage. No, but I might do one of those walkways with a little roof over it. Man of Lore channel says, how much land do you have now? Not much. It's 10 acres. It's not big, but it's 10 good acres. Good acres. Wasn't like clear cut 10 years ago or anything like that. It's got big trees on it. Most of which are hardwoods. It borders a national forest, and I cannot see anyone in any direction. And it's got 2 buildings for a total of about 11 or 1,200 square feet, both buildings combined. So, yeah. Let me see here. Okay, yeah, for bug problem. Lance Corporal veteran in the house. Cool. People from back in the day. Forest entity. Guy from V. Of course. Minoan. Yes, I am a ruthless vermin murderer. Man of Lore. Already covered. Z Central Academic Agency. The Mead Master. Yeah, scorpions. Fucking scorpions. Yeah. Nudge Unit says, fuck bedbugs, man, and fuck cockroaches, and fuck rats. You know what? I think we got some weird kind of forest rat out here, because I went out to, out on the, I've got a concrete sort of area that's kind of like a porch for the shop area, and I have a bunch of all the boxes that I'm breaking down after I unpack them staged out there. And I like came out and grabbed some to bring in and, you know, take the box knife to them and flatten them and get them ready to carry them away. And man, something went darting. And that shit was fast. I mean, it was a mammal for sure. It was fast as shit. And it was at least the size of a fat squirrel, but it wasn't a squirrel. It looked black. I'm thinking it was a rat, man. And if I got to deal with forest rats, also on my heat pump system, I've got some insulation that's been chewed off of things. And yeah, the forest rats. That's where, that, friends, is where the CZ 28-inch barrel Ultralux, loaded with a 22 shorts, is going to come into its own. Yes, but you can have a gun channel or a political channel, never both. I've noticed some people have been ripping me off on that, by the way. I just want to call dibs on that. I came up with mid-century Germans, and I came up with the idea that you can have a political channel or a gun channel, but not both. Those are mine. Mine. Okay. Next questions. Um, I'm drinking, fuck. Clearly I'm into it. I'm drinking Bullet bourbon. I am not in Louisiana, and I will never go back to New Orleans. Sad to say. All right. Squiggy says, Semigog, where can I read further into bio-Leninism? If Charlemagne is still around, he follows the NRX stuff. I think that really came from, is it Nick Land? Or no, it's that other dude with some sort of crazy handle name. Somebody in the chat will tell you, Squiggy, where you can read about bio-Leninism. It's the basic idea was set forth by someone. Will have to put that name in there because it's not coming to my mind. Does the new neighborhood have any cryptid tales? I love those. That from Dagbreaker. Hello, sir. I don't understand the question. I can't give you guys any updates on Ukraine and Russia. Spandrel. Yeah, Spandrel. There it is. Thank you, fearless leader. Seamus O'Blaine says, Semigog, any more thoughts on non-linguistic thought? Yes, there will be more of that, and soon. That is not over. I don't know where anything is. Everything is all fucking over the place, man. Like, I have to find my social security card if I want to, like, get a driver's license for my new state, and I got so much shit. So much shit. There's a line in a Tom Waits song about this guy. I think it's in Frank's Wild Years. And he talks about, what is it? Jack-o'-lantern, orange and red or whatever, as he sets his own house on fire. Not that I want to burn everything down, but, you know, a major conflagration might be the ultimate form of spring cleaning. Yeah, just so much shit. So it's going to take a little while for me to get my act together as regards picking up on my writing. I want to get the clips going again properly. And then I fully translated my Ottoman book, but then the move hit. So now I need to typeset it and get it out. Then I will move on to working on the book on the semiotics of nationalism. All right. Noah Solomon in the house. Hello, sir. What is going to be the subject for the next Light and Darkness series? And when will it premiere? Well, I hope you will put pressure on Anteos about that. Let me look. He posted about it recently. We have not set a date yet. Let me check. Where is he? There he is. He wrote, sorry, I'm just trying to find it. Okay, I'm preparing the 6th episode on Light and Darkness about the Paris Commune. This time, the Freemasons are not operating in the shadows. They are sending delegations to the conservative government on behalf of the insurrection and parading their banners in public for the Commune. So I don't want to give away any more because he's still producing it, and he's still producing what he will discuss based on his research, and he's carried the lion's share of the weight on this series. So yeah, I don't know when it's going to happen, but if I had to guess, it's going to be within the next 3 months at most, and hopefully sooner, but it's going to depend on when Anteos is free, and I'm not going to put any pressure on him about it because there's so much research involved, and when he shows up, he's prepared. Okay. Alfred the Great says, good to see you back, mate. Hope you're well. Thank you very much. I hope the same for you. Angela P. in the house. Wait a minute. Now I'm all behind. It says, love you. I say, thank you very much, kind lady. Yeah, so Spandrel we already covered. Charlemagne says, yes, watch my videos. Watch Charlemagne's videos. Watch Charlemagne's videos. True Peep, Mighty, The Main. Minoan says, how different are forest rats from Norway rats? Fuck, I don't know. Men Like God says, get a dog. They're great for rats. Man, my mother wants me to get, I don't know where she got this idea. She wants me to get a Great Pyrenee or something. Great Pyrenees or whatever. Some kind of crazy ass big dog. I like big dogs. I don't know. Just dog running around in the forest here. On land that's not fenced, that's all woods. Yeah, I'm not a... I'm going to think about it. We'll see. I mean, 22 rifle, 22 shorts, coming out of a 28-inch barrel is going to sound like an air gun, and I'll be able to clean the clock of rats. I need to get some night vision, though. Up in the Elf Tower with night vision, shooting 22 shorts at rats. All right. Sigma Sneed says, Semiagog, will you stream on Odyssey in the future? That way you can collect donations. I could do it here. I just haven't turned it on. I've already got a number of very, very kind people who are supporting the channel. Anyone is welcome to do so with Subscribe Star. Maybe I'll stream there. They've got to get a few things sorted out. There are still some problems. They're the most promising of all. I'm very happy they're there, but it's not quite there yet. So it'll probably be a little while. And I will, as I've said in the past, I will probably go sit at the feet of Academic Agent and figure out the proper way to activate super chats and start pumping some merch and, you know, buy Foundations of Economics. Yeah. What is next? Get a German Shepherd. Hell yeah, man. That's the only dog I grew up with. I had German Shepherds in my family when I was young. the German Shepherd named Rufus. My dad's black German Shepherd was named Rufus. How based is that? I am not a fucking millennial. My father was not a boomer. He was the ones right before boomer. So he could still have a black dog, German Shepherd named Rufus. Kangal. Who said Kangal? Raspberry Treacle said Kangal. Kangal abi. Evet. Ya hayvan. Büyük bir hayvan. Ya Kangal. Türkçe hiç hatırlamıyorum ya. Hiç kullanmıyorum onu. Hiçbir şey hatırlamıyorum. Tuhaf bir şey aslında. Her neyse. Okay. Next question. Lance Corporal Veteran, Semiagog, do you think the far left progressives are aware or conscious that their beliefs are almost comparable to a religion? No. They're quite sure that they're beyond such concerns. Yeah. Yeah, sadly, no self-awareness there. I am not a number, I am a free man, says Semiagog. Any poison ivy in the forest? Yeah, no doubt. And ticks are going to be an issue here soon too. But boy, I plan to properly stroll the land in the winter and cut a path along the border so I can walk it with a lantern. Okay, peoples. Do you have any further questions? Any good further questions? If you do, I will jump in and try to provide some answers. If not, I will go roll more cigarettes and pour drinks and empty boxes, as I've been doing for some time. A guy from V says everyone subscribe to Ice Age Farmer. Who are you fucking shilling on my stream, man? I don't know if he's approved yet, but if Guy from V digs him, he's probably worth your time. Fearless Leader says, chat not producing good questions tonight. That's all right. I'm, well into my whiskey at this point, so I probably deserve it. Charlemagne is packing boxes. Oh, man. See, you're still young. You're still young and spry. And though I don't doubt that you have a considerable and well-selected library, I don't think it has spawned other books in the proportion that mine has. So, yeah, get a hand truck now, dude. And get a mag liner. Get a mag liner hand truck. You'll have it for the rest of your life. You will never regret the purchase. Trust me, buy a hand truck now and watch all your foolish peers slag around trying to fucking figure out what to do without a hand truck. They're all going to want to borrow it from you. Get a hand truck now and get good boxes. Okay, let me have a talk about boxes. This box is the best box. Where is it? Do I have one? Yes. This. These boxes are shockingly good. This box is a Diamond Comic Company box. These boxes, look at this. Double walled. Let me get that where you can see it. You see how thick that box is? Some of these boxes I have like broken down and used again and again for decades. I was very lucky. My buddy worked at a comic book shop and he told me about Diamond comic boxes. There is no better box. They are shockingly good. And the companies that have lots of graphic novels and comic books, they get shipments weekly in these boxes. And they break them down and they put them in the dumpsters out back afterwards. And you know what? They're all sized. So they work together on pallets. So here's a larger Diamond comic box, right? Let me show you. This is the smaller Diamond comic box, which I recommend for books because only fools pack books into large boxes. This box becomes that much more strong when it's small and double walled like it is. This is the small size Diamond comic box. Note, come on now. Note that it is exactly half the width of the full-size Diamond comic box, which means they all stack neatly, which means that when they're stacked properly and lined up, the walls of the various ones support each other, and because they're thicker and heavier, they can be stacked higher without crushing everything underneath. There is nothing like a Diamond comic box. Okay. Now, what's next? Oh, we got a few questions. The Central Academic Agency says, are you familiar with the 2050 pole shift? No, I am not. Sabrina, hello, Miss Lady, says, whatever happened with Cassius? I do not know. I think his Twitter account is still around, but I have not heard anything from him, so I don't know. I hope he comes back. He was doing good translation work. It's Cassius. I think he's out of Ireland, and he had a channel where he was translating all kinds of content coming out of European continental politics. Alabaster says, is there a comic to anime pipeline? If so, who tells AA? I don't know enough about that stuff. I don't have anything to do with it. Hand truck. Some of you fuckers will call it a trolley. And what is it? A sack barrow, I think, was the best and oldest name Charlemagne says, I have heavy-duty boxes from Home Depot. Home Depot is garbage. Yeah, you need Diamond comic boxes. There is, I don't know if you can order them, Charlie. I would figure out what the biggest nerd mecca comic store is in your general area, and they're almost certainly going to get things from Diamond comic distributors. Not only will you get these great boxes, but when you go to pick them up, you'll get these inserts that fit perfectly into them, that brace them and keep bugs out and make them stronger and keep your books cleaner. Notice the cool carry handles too. Yeah, I don't know if you can order them, but find out what's going on with this blur here. Find out where the nearest comic book store is in your area and obtain them there. All right, other questions. We're coming to the end here. The best, Fearless Leader says, the best semiagog gammon in the chat comprehend how much they're learning. Oh, this is the best semiagog gammon in the chat comprehend how much they're learning. Sounds like a positive remark, so I'll take it. John Swanson says, Charlemagne, I was in logistics for the military. I know how to transport things. Charlie, listen to any of the military people because they know when they have to get moved about shipping things in containers, and they're going to be up on the various rates and things. They can hook you up, man. Military people also know a whole bunch about how to like fucking scan Craigslist in cities where military are stationed in order to get deals. I learned that from a woman who was involved with the military and clued me in on it. They have their own wisdom. Those in the military are forced to deal with crazy circumstances, and they have lore. They have their own lore. So do not dismiss it. What else? Look, Werner von Braun says Lowe's makes double-walled moving boxes. Listen, I don't give a shit if they say that they are double-walled. Here's a great box that I bought. These are not double-walled, but they're very stout and very thick. And these I paid a premium for. Yeah, they're a little too big for books. You know, when folded up, they're about like yay big, right? They're not double-walled, but they're fairly solid. The thing is, look at one of their walls versus one of the Diamond comic walls. Only on this stream. Only here can you see such things, people. Oh, I don't know. I guess their one wall is... You can probably get boxes as good as Diamond comic, but you're going to pay out the ass. Seriously. I learned how expensive boxes can be. You're going to pay out the ass, whereas the Diamond comic boxes, when broken down, will be free. Okay. King Salmonfish, hello, sir. He says, mentioned you in an interview with some good company. What do you think about glossolalia? Are you talking about like speaking in tongues and that sort of thing? I would have to prepare my thoughts for that. But if that's what you're talking about, I did see my aunt, who became a member of the Church of God, go mumbling down the aisle one time, going, and I have seen individual persons' psyche break down under the influence of psychedelics on occasion, where they too produced something like that. But I'd have to think about that a bit. Yeah. Foundations of boxes. Right. Okay. Charlie's talking about generators too. I'm going to have to do that soon. I think I'm going to get an inverter generator. So yeah, I think diamond boxes were actually a part of Germany's V weapons program. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have gone past 2 hours. So I am now going to go and drink more without making a spectacle of myself publicly. Fucking can boxes morph. You fucking... fucking morph. Fucking impactful. Fucking hone in. You're all sucking on tits full of dust. All right, that's it. I'm out of here, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all. Don't forget, coming up in about a week next, or a little less than a week, next Wednesday, I am hoping to be talking with AA and another guest that has not yet been confirmed. So, yeah, check that out. I'm not fully back. I'm gonna, as I said, I'm gonna have a little bit of weirdness where I have to move the last of my my books in, but then this shit is gonna happen, peoples. This shit is gonna happen. And again, I thank very much the people who continue to support my channel. People like King Salmon Fish, others, a whole ton of them. And forgive me, the opening credits have not been updated in a while. So if there's somebody new and your name is not on the list, I will sort it out soon. That is it for now. So yeah, until next time, I am Semiagog. I am Semiagog. And I am out.